shout out to the beautiful state of North Carolina. I have a feeling they're going to be shouted out a couple of times in this episode because, first of all, North Carolina, I think it's like the most underrated state other than Florida. Florida's pretty underrated. Florida gets a bad rap. You know I love Florida. But North Carolina is so beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
It's not California beautiful, but California is, I think, appropriately rated. North Carolina is underrated.
Yeah.
There's the ocean, there's mountains and streams and valleys and the Blue Ridge, and it's not hard to find a beautiful log cabin with a big rolling yard and a babbling brook, and I love a babbling brook. How I feel about a babbling brook. When a brook babbles, I will listen. But yeah, so North Carolina is awesome, and we're talking about the gardener today, and just thinking about nature, thinking about the seasons. We've been it's kind of been a theme for us over the last couple of months. We've been talking a lot about that, both in private and also at events and on the pod and everything. And I was just thinking about how you have to. One of the things that nature invites you to do is to go with the flow. You know what I mean? It just like we've always talked about to give love to our home state of Florida. We've always talked. You've told me that when we go to Florida, I breathe differently. You can instantly tell that I'm relaxed. There's something about and our specific spot in Florida too. It's not super crazy or busy. It's a barrier island. It's beautiful. It's surrounded by water, and the ocean breeze is in the air, and it immediately calms me down. Yeah. And it's very kind grounding. Of invites me to go with the rhythm of the day, the sunrise, the sunset, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. There's something about going with the flow of the nature there that just brings me peace. I don't feel like I have to push or force, or I feel like I can go with the flow, and I have a feeling that it's for some reason all going to be okay. And I don't even really know why that happens. Although I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, but there's something about going with the flow. So back to North Carolina, when I was in college, I used to work at this summer camp that had on either side of a mountain, it had a guy's camp and a girl's camp. And each camp had a lake, and the girls' camp, they dammed up the lake so when they swam in it, it's warm. So the water is just sitting there baking in the sun because it's not moving. And so it gets warm. So it's much more comfortable to swim in. Yeah. Which the girls wanted. But at the same time, when you get out of the water, you're literally covered head to toe in all kinds of gunk and growth and stuff that just is in the water because it's not moving. Whereas on the other side of the mountain, the guys' camp, our lake, was freezing, much more miserable at first to get in, but it was crystal clear, blue, beautiful water, fresh mountain water because we didn't dam it up. So it was flowing. There was constantly on one end of the lake was the inflow from the top of the mountain. And then on the other end of the lake, it was flowing out down into streams and whatever, down into the valley. And so it was clean and you felt almost healthy. You almost felt like you could drink the water. But it was freezing. So there's trade-offs. But I feel like it was better to go with the natural order of things. And that's what The Gardener as a song has encouraged me to do. I love this song. I've loved it ever since the first day you showed it to me. Not to flatter you, but I think it's a really, really well-written song.
Yeah, shout out to the other writers that I wrote it with. Ben Shive and Maria wrote.
Yeah, I just think it's a beautiful song, and it's one of those songs that actually doesn't leave you with a whole lot to expound on because I think it just says it all so well. Yeah. But what it encourages me to think about is going with the flow, trusting the process, and literally the opening line of the song, "God, you're the gardener." And just for the pressure to be lifted off of me, for God to remind me and for me to remind myself, God, you're the gardener. You are the one ultimately who's overlooking, seeing what's growing, what's not growing, what needs to be watered, what needs to be pruned. And Lord, I just want so badly to be able to just trust you and go with the flow, trust the process, just try to bloom, try to reach towards the light, and just trust ultimately that you're in control. So it's trust and it's patience to let things go the way they're going to go. That's what this song brings me to, is a place of like reflection where I go, do I trust God? And am I willing to be patient enough to see what he's working on come to fruition?
Yeah, it's freaking hard though.
Oh, it sucks. It majorly sucks.
Like the whole analogy of a garden is really interesting to me for multiple reasons, because I'm a terrible gardener, first of all. Like if I was the gardener in charge of my life, it would be bad. I mean, as you've seen and experienced in our own life, I kill plants left and right. I have a black thumb. I don't know how to deal with the weeds in our backyard. Like there's been several times that in the summer, our backyard turns into a literal like rainforest because the weeds are so high.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about it. Like I've tried the natural thing. I've tried to kill them with vinegar. It doesn't work. Like I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? In that sense, it's an interesting analogy because I'm like, how do you navigate that? There's a lot to navigate in a garden landscape to keep it healthy and thriving and fruitful and good. And it takes a lot of like effort and focus and knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you think about a vine grower trying to grow grapes for wine, it requires an insane amount of like intention and knowing the plant through and through to know where to cut it back and how far to cut it back and all of those things, like all of those details, like on a scientific level. It's a lot. Like it requires a lot of patience, like you're saying. It requires a lot of attention and intentionality. And so like to think about God as the gardener of my life actually gives me a lot of peace, and like in the same sense. Like I don't know what I'm doing and I make a mess of this all the time. I make a mess of the garden of my life all the time. And I need someone else's guidance ultimately, and someone else to be in charge of that, because I will make a mess of it. And it's
sure.
And sometimes like I find a lot of peace in surrendering to that truth, I guess. And I mean, that was the whole point of writing this song, was like, I wanted a song that was a prayer for pruning, for the idea of pruning. I think that concept for Christians especially, or just like people who are trying to be faithful and trying to work towards holiness, if you want holiness in your life, you have to be willing to be pruned.
Totally.
Which is a hard thing to navigate, a hard thing to surrender to, and ultimately to realize like, yeah, if I'm in charge, I'm going to make a mess of this. So I'm giving it to God, but that ultimately means I'm surrendering it all to God. Pruning things getting cut back, things getting de-weeded and thrown away. Like I don't have control of that. And that's not fun. It's not comforting. It's not a song that's meant to like comfort you. It's actually a song that's meant to challenge you.
Yeah.
And it challenges me when I sing it. It challenges me when I hear it. And I agree with you. I love this song. Like, and I was a part of writing it, you know, but that was the whole goal for me, was like to create something that I personally, first and foremost, needed in my prayer life, like to actually set the stage for me to be able to think about, like literally take a good hard look at my life and recognize the places where I'm holding on to things that are not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You know, potentially.
Totally.
And like
just the openness to be pruned. The line, for my good and for your glory, do what you have to do. You know, if something is growing that doesn't belong, cut it away.
Yeah.
And if something is growing that's like good and fruitful, help it to stay, help me to be rooted.
Right.
That there's a patient trust in saying, like, I'm gonna grow, and the things in the garden of my life are gonna grow, not by striving but by abiding. And so there is like you want to have deep roots. You want to be sturdy in what you believe and in what you're doing and in what you're about. And that takes patience, and it takes trust, and it takes letting God do what he's going to do, which is really difficult. Especially if you're someone like me who wants things to move fast. I want things to happen. And like when I have an idea, I don't, but it's like you don't plant the seed and eat the fruit on the same day. I don't know. I
know.
just read that somewhere. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good point. Like, but I do want that. I'm like, what would hit right now? Some blackberries. And I want to like go plant the blackberry seeds in the morning.
Then immediately.
And, that evening have blackberry cobbler. It's like, that's not how it works.
And honestly, with technology, the way it's moving, maybe there will be someday where that's possible, but it's probably not going to be good fruit for you. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a process and there's nutrients that are like infused into the process of fruit being born that we can't rush. You know what I mean? Like, it reminds me of the garden at my Uncle John and Aunt Sandy's old house in North Carolina. Ding, 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 North Carolina. Back to the beautiful hills of North Carolina. But it was like fertile ground. And in the summer, their garden would produce so much vegetables and beautiful fruit and flowers and all of these things. But like, there was a time when they were first starting it out when it was like a labor of love. Like strawberries, for example, they had to plant like almost, I want to say it was 2 years worth of like tilling the soil and planting the seeds and making sure that it got the right amount of sunlight and didn't freeze too much. And all, like, it was like years in the making to finally get a bush of strawberries that was producing fruit, which is such a powerful analogy for life and such a powerful analogy for me, even right now where I'm at in my life, of like, it feels like a building phase, not to get too in the weeds with career stuff, but it feels like a building phase in a lot of ways. Like, we are planting seeds in a lot of ways. And yeah, I would love to see the fruit of that. I would love to know that there is going to be fruit. To know that like this time of planting is worth it.
Right.
And we just can't know. And so it's ultimately like, again, it's ultimately saying, I am going to do the work that I feel called to do and try to do it to the best of my freaking ability. But ultimately it's up to you, God, to produce the fruit in my life, to literally give it the lifeblood that it needs or not, or let it die. That's the reality.
Yeah.
Which is really hard. And maybe I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm in the season of it that this song is just like kind of putting pressure on a pain point, Sure. But, well, a lot of how we receive these things is the season that we're in. If you're in a season where everything is blooming and blossoming, like you were saying earlier, there are some seasons in that North Carolina garden at your uncle and aunt's house where they had way too much. They didn't know what to do with it. It was like every day you'd walk out there and there'd be 10 new things that grew that were needed to be taken inside, and you couldn't possibly eat all of it. So there is a time to sow and a time to reap. And sometimes the fruit is more than you could possibly imagine, and you're just like swimming in the graces of that. And sometimes you're just out there tilling the soil and working and not seeing the results, and that's part of the process as well. So I think the thing about the patience part too is you get better with experience. You learn to trust the rhythms, and you learn to trust the ways of God, and you learn to trust that when he's pruning, that even though things often need to be pruned way more extremely or aggressively than the untrained eye might think, as you said before, like to trust that he knows what he's doing, I think helps not to freak out so much. In my experience as a young person, but also talking to a lot of young people, is like the first few times you go through these seasons, you're like completely freaked out. Yeah.
And as you get older, you hopefully you continue to learn that God does know what he's doing, and that there's a season for everything, and that when he prunes something, there's a reason for it. And he's got a vision. He's looking at the whole garden. He's the gardener. He can see what needs care and attention and love and water and sunlight, and what needs to be pruned back so that it can grow back stronger. Like,
what needs time to grow, and
right. So like, there might be a time where you even feel like, hey, gardener, can I get some attention in my area? And he might be looking like, no, actually you're okay
you're
for a little
exactly
bit.
Where you need to be.
Yeah. What I've experienced with God is as you walk with him, you continue to learn more about him and his heart and his ways. And ideally you grow in that trust, but it's definitely not easy. I mean, I'm in a season too where I'm just like, I don't get this. This isn't exactly what I agreed to or signed up for. And I would like, if it was up to me, I would like things to move a little quicker.
I'd love barrels of fruit to be born. I'd love fruit that I can't keep up with. I'd love that.
Right. It's a better problem to have in my mind, you know. But we've had those seasons. That's the funny thing is if we were having this conversation literally, 10 months ago, it would be like our stress at that point was there's way too many good things happening right now. I can't even give them all the attention they need.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting thing. Just things come and go in seasons, and we're not in control of that process, but we can trust the one who is.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this on our walk earlier today, like the idea of there are going to be storms in life, and there are going to be times when it feels like we are just tossed out to sea and we don't understand what's happening. But like actually recently I've gotten a lot of comfort from like the image of Jesus asleep in the boat, in the storm-tossed boat, and this idea of like, I can't control the circumstances of my life. I can't control the things that happen to me, but I can control how I respond to it and if I'm choosing trust in that, or if I'm choosing freak out mode like the disciples did in that analogy or in that story. Like, and I know it's not, again, we're talking about things that are not easy and that are not like no-brainers and that require, again, a lot of like attention and focus, and like it's a choice, but it is my choice, and it is within my power to choose when things are going wrong to like choose the path of trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said there were two verses that you kind of put at the core of the song as you were writing it, and can you share those, because I think that's something interesting there.
Yeah. So the first one is from John 15. It says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. And then from Galatians 5:22, it says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, which we've talked about the fruits before on this pod. But connecting those two, I guess I had them connected in my brain, but I'd never really like thought to connect them in the sense of a song, or like in the sense of thinking about like a gardener, like the garden of your life and the fruit that it bears. Like if you have those fruits in your life, then you're doing a good job, I think. Then you're doing a good job of like surrendering to the gardener and allowing just whatever comes to come, Right. But if one of those things, and we've talked about this before, if it's a good like litmus test almost for your life. Like if one of those things is not present, which I'm speaking to myself right now, it's not just one, it's multiple of those things that are not present in my life, then it's a sign of like something is awry here and in the depths of my heart. Like something is awry in the garden, something is awry in the way that I am processing these things and trying to like take control.
Right.
Can
you read the fruits again?
Yeah. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Yeah. I feel like all of those, they're slow. They grow slowly. They require trust. And I know patience is one of them, but like none of those things I feel like are things that you just grab and wrestle to the ground and you attain through sheer power or might. All of those seem to be things you almost have to receive. I mean, like you receive any gift.
Yeah.
You receive it. You don't earn a gift. You receive a gift. And so many of us are so focused on earning and achieving. And these gifts are gifts that we receive through the grace of God, through the grace of the gardener. And I think it's interesting that first verse too, like you would maybe think, hey, things that need to go, cut them out. Great. I'm on board with that. But the things that are like good, that are growing and like they're supposed to be there, like leave them the frick alone. But no, it says those things need to be pruned so that they can be even more fruitful. And that's a weird thing where sometimes you go like, hey, I thought this was the good thing. Why is this being pruned? And it's like, yeah, because the gardener knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's just an encouragement to anyone who is pursuing a path, pursuing a vocation or a career or a relationship or whatever it is. And it's like, if things are getting cut out and they just need to go, like discern that too, for sure. But sometimes even the good things, even the thing that you are being asked to do, the thing that you are being asked to offer, it gets pruned for a reason.
Yeah.
And not everything is going to go your way, or at least not in the immediate. It won't seem like that. That's where the trust comes in.
Right.
Because if it all just kind of constantly made sense to us, there would be no need for trust.
Yeah.
And if it all happened like faster than we could blink, then there would be no need for patience. Yeah. And so, that it's just a thing that was interesting to me.
Good things take time.
Good things take time.
This will be the final thought because we have to go. But I once heard our friend Michelle Benzinger talking about the idea of pruning and the concept of it, and how when your life is being pruned, when a vine is being pruned, like it's almost like the person who's pruning it has to get right up in it, right up close, to be intentional and careful with it, and like there's like a closeness in that. And so when you are being pruned, it might feel like, this is so hard. I don't understand it. Why are you doing this? You're far away from me. Like, I don't get it. Like it's a confusing thing, but actually if you are being pruned, it's a sign of like God's closeness, actually, which I've never really, just until this moment, like when you were talking about that, like the fruits and the trust and the patience, like a part of that is recognizing that even here in the midst of the pruning, God is close. Because he has to be in order to be intentional about it.
Right. Right.
And
I love that.
There's a lot of comfort in that to me.
Yeah. He is close. He is caring. He is attentive. He is at work. It doesn't mean there's no work for us to do. We also have to kind of tend the garden of our life and all that kind of thing. I mean, it's almost like we're invited to co-garden with him, but ultimately assistant gardener. Yeah. But ultimately to let him lead and I love that, to trust that if that process is intimate, and so he's going to get all up in our business, and and we have to just be open to that. It's such a great song. I know it's a song that a lot of people have loved, and it's led them in prayer, and it certainly has done that for me. So thank you for putting it out there. Yeah,
you're welcome. I hope it blesses people today.
One more thing we should mention. We're going to Mexico. We're going to dive into some of the lives of the saints, like Blessed Miguel Pro, and we're going to visit Our Lady of Guadalupe and a couple of other really amazing sites. We're going to see some ancient sites, some pyramids and things like that.
We're going to eat some amazing Mexican food.
Yes, drink some tequila.
Margaritas.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. So there's more information about that in the link in the show notes. But so I hope you're doing well out there. Thanks for sticking with us. We got a couple more great songs to come from this record.
Other people to interview too.
And then we're going to kind of switch gears and have different kind of conversations with other people. So that's exciting. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Peace.